Welcome to the Explainer. We're going to jump into this really cool 70-year-old economic idea that honestly perfectly explains a huge puzzle in business today. Why does some companies do everything themselves while others farm out all the little jobs? The answer tells us how whole industries are even born, and believe me, it's more relevant now than ever. Okay, so to get our heads around this, we actually have to go way back, like over 2 centuries ago, to a puzzle created by the father of economics himself, Adam Smith. He came up with this brilliant theorem that, funnily enough, also created a major dilemma. So Smith's famous idea is pretty simple, but it's profound. He's basically saying that as a market gets bigger, work gets way more specialized. Think about a single craftsman being replaced by a whole assembly line. That kind of specialization, it makes everything way more efficient and, of course, cheaper. But hold on a second. That creates a real head-scratcher. If bigger and more specialized always means lower costs, then shouldn't every single industry just become a monopoly, right? Shouldn't one giant, super efficient company eventually just take over everything? But that's not what we see. So what gives? Well, the answer to that puzzle came much, much later, from an economist named George Stigler. And his idea was, to solve Smith's dilemma, we got to stop looking at a company as just one big thing. We need to look inside it at all the different jobs it has to do. And this was Stigler's big aha moment. He realized a firm isn't some black box that just, turns stuff into other stuff. Nope. It's actually a collection of different jobs, a whole bundle of distinct functions that it has to perform. And these functions, they cover the whole shebang. We're talking everything from buying the raw materials to actually making the product, all the way to storing it, marketing it, and selling it. Every single company out there is juggling this collection of internal jobs. Okay, and here is the absolute key to the whole thing. Not all of these jobs are created equal, not by a long shot. Some of them, like manufacturing, get cheaper per unit the more you do them. That's what economists call increasing returns. But other jobs, like, say, management and coordination, they can actually get more complicated and more expensive as you get bigger. Those have diminishing returns. And this is where Stigler's theory really starts to cook. He uses this idea to explain what happens to that bundle of jobs when a whole industry starts to take off. He called this process vertical disintegration. So picture this. A brand new industry pops up. Maybe someone invents something totally new. At the very beginning, the market is tiny, right? There's just not enough demand for any one of those little jobs to support its own separate business. So what happens? Every company has to do everything themselves. They're making their own parts, they're doing their own marketing, the whole works, all in-house. But then the industry starts to grow, and as it expands, the volume of one of those specific tasks, remember, one of those jobs with increasing returns, like making a specific component, it gets so big that a dedicated specialist company could do just that one thing all day, every day. And boom. That is literally how new industries are born. A new, specialized firm pops up. It takes over that one job for all the other companies in the industry. And because it's a specialist, it can do it way cheaper. The original companies, they are more than happy to outsource that job and focus on what they do best. But what's so cool about this theory is that it doesn't just explain how new industries spin off from old ones. It actually gives us a brilliant picture of the entire life cycle of an industry, from its birth to its eventual decline. And hey, this isn't just some abstract theory. We've got the data to prove it. If you look at the U.S. economy between 1919 and 1937, a period of massive growth, the percentage of companies doing everything themselves, what we call being vertically integrated, it actually went down a lot. The economy was unbundling itself, just like Stigler said it would. And what's really fascinating is that this whole process works in reverse, too. So when a mature industry starts to shrink, the market for all those specialized services dries up. The little specialist firms can't survive anymore, so they go out of business. And the big companies that are left, they have to reabsorb all those jobs and start doing them in-house again, really just to stay afloat. Okay, so let's zoom way out for a second, because this one simple idea has absolutely massive consequences for how we understand the whole global economy. It really helps answer a fundamental question. Why are some countries so wealthy while others seem to struggle to catch up? So check out this quote. It's describing the gun-making industry back in 19th century Birmingham, England. Now, at the time, this was the firearms capital of the world. But it wasn't one giant factory. Far from it.
The whole industry was this incredibly dense ecosystem of tiny, hyper-specialized independent craftsmen.
I mean, the division of labor here was just taken to a completely unbelievable extreme. You had independent specialists for every single tiny part of the process. Guys who only made barrels, others who only made the locks, people who just did the polishing. Each one was its own separate little business. So, what's the big takeaway from all this? Well, it's pretty profound. A country's real economic strength isn't just in its big, shiny factories that you can see. It's in this dense, almost invisible network of specialized supporting industries that make those factories so efficient. And that is why it's so incredibly hard for a smaller economy to just, copy the production methods of a bigger one. They just don't have that deep ecosystem of specialists.
And that brings us to a final thought from, of all people, Benjamin Franklin, who noticed this exact problem centuries ago. He realized you can't just export a factory. If you really want to replicate an advanced economy, you have to export its entire ecosystem of specialists. And as he pointed out, trying to do that, well, it's a project that often just vanishes into smoke. Which really makes you think, doesn't it? What does this all mean for globalization and economic development in our world today? Now that's a question worth chewing on.